Amy, as you know, and this is my speech on the cultural artifact. So let's get started. Food is essential to every living being, so no one would be opposed to get some tacos right about now with some spicy salsa on the side. You see, in Latino culture, spicy salsa is basically embedded in every single dish to give that final delicious touch to an exquisite meal. You see, this salsa is made, and what I have here is a molcajete. A molcajete is Spanish for mortar, which is the bowl, and tejolote is Spanish for peso. But when we refer to this item, it'll just be molcajete. As first generation US citizen, my family's cuisine is heavily based on Mexican cuisine. I've lived in Mexico for 4 years and I have a dual citizenship from Mexico and the United States. You see, due to more and more people from Latino America coming to the Latino community has been growing here in the States. As great as it is to experiment with new recipes, it's always important to make the dish in its authentic form. I would like to inform you about the Mexican cuisine culture and how deeply it is embedded in the person I am today, and the history of this artifact. So let's get started with the history of this artifact. A molcajete can vary from place to place. In Mexico, as you saw, this is a version of the Mexican molcajete, is carved out of basalt rock, which is volcanic rock. And this molcajete is basically used for salsa and guacamole. But in El Salvador, they use a bigger version of the molcajete to grind maize, and that maize is turned into flour. Flour is then turned into tortillas. So it varies from place to place. Other versions of the molcajete is a delicate marble mortar and pestle, and that is used for pharmaceutical purposes, for medicinal purposes. And these marble molcajetes can have intricate designs on the exterior. You see, the culture this object represents is Latino culture, because this molcajete, a version of it, can be traced way back to when the Mayans and Aztecs were still roaming Latino America. These items are still used for the same purposes they did back then, for food preparation. And although the technology has now advanced and we can use a blender, it's always great to just go back and use the molcajete to stay in touch with your ancestors, even if it is by cooking. The design has changed little to nothing over the many years it was first created. Now that I have discussed the history, let's talk about how I identify with the culture. I have been consuming Mexican food all of my life, exactly 21 years. And this is the best time to gossip, to laugh, to learn, and spend quality time with the family. When I think back on my years living in Mexico, I have such fond memories of my family getting together while all the kids, myself included, were doing a ruckus. My great-grandma on my dad's side and my grandmother on my mother's side have unfortunately passed away. Yet their legacy still lives on in the kitchen through my grandma, my dad's mother, and my own mother, which in turn, it'll be passed down to me as the eldest daughter in the family, and then I will pass down these recipes to my own children someday. Now that I have talked about how I identify with the culture, I will talk about how I connect to a larger culture. You see, not only has a mortar and pestle be used for grinding food, but it can be used for medicinal purposes, to grind up herbs, to grind up pills for pharmaceutical purposes, as mentioned. Another version of molcajete can also be found in countries such as India and parts of Southeast Asia, like China, for the mortar and pestle for food, especially for the grinding process. Now that I've talked about this, I will conclude my speech. You see, food is what brings people together in the community to laugh and share. It's best to capture its authenticity and to keep its legacy alive. Food may be essential to everyone, but sharing a meal with family will always taste better than eating alone. Next time you're looking for food, I suggest you try Mom and Pop for some authentic food.